All set, Dennis.
Good evening. We'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, September 17th, 2013 for the Marquette Township Board to order. If you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Secretary, roll call, please.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Pompo,
Here.
Trustee Trescott,
Here.
Trustee Durant,
Here.
Treasurer Johnson,
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard. John Marks is the Chair of the Zoning ZBA. And Dave Wiegand was here. Bob Sims is Fire Chief is here, and Leanne Kaczmarski, Events Committee Chair is here.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. As you are aware, the consent agenda typically includes those items which do not require immediate board actions. This evening's includes the approval of the prior meeting minutes and closed session minutes, both from September 3rd. Received committee reports from the Sheriff's Department from August of 2013, the Fire Department activity report of August. Bills payable, the amount of $624,843.02. And I just have one quick question before. Lynn, on your Planning Commission report, do you want to include that, add that into the consent agenda for this evening?
Yeah, I didn't realize till today when I got an email from Randy that he never got it last Wednesday. So however protocol allows it to be included is
Does somebody
fine.
make a motion to include it into the consent agenda under item number B?
So moved. So
Second.
moved.
We have motion and support. All those in favor of adding the agenda item?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Unless somebody wants to remove something for the consent agenda for further discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is agenda item number 5, approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any items that we need to change on the agenda, Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, after additional comments from the board members, so it'd be the new number 14. I'd like to add a closed session for contract negotiations.
Is there a second to that?
I'll make it.
Motion and support to add additional closed session. Do you have a specific language for the closed session, Clerk Rattari?
Yeah, it's going to be for strategy negotiation sessions connected with negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement. And I will add the MCL in my minutes for that.
Okay. If we're in a closed session, do you have to have a separate vote on that, or go through when we approve the agenda?
I'm not totally sure, but we can, just to be safe, I guess we can make a motion on the agenda item, adding it, and then approve the agenda.
Because it's a closed session, and I think it's important that
It's just an item on the agenda. When we get
Yeah.
to the closed session, then we have to vote to go into closed session.
Yes.
but because we're adding it at the last minute is where my concern is.
Oh, I don't.
I think just to be safe, we just do a quick roll call vote on that closed session, addition of the closed session, I'll feel better.
Okay, for the closed session, the Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee Pompo,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Durant,
Yes.
Trustee Trescott,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yeah.
and Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
Motion carries. Closed session will be added.
Thank you. Now I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. that brings us to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to make comment may do so at this time. Absolutely.
Yeah, someone's feedback.
Hello, I'm Leanne Kashmarsky from the Events Committee. I just want to give you guys an update that over the last 4 months since June, we've put on 4 events. As you know, we did the car show with Applebee's in June, and then in August, we had the Community Day at Lions Field, as well as the business open house for the new township facilities, the Township Hall and the Fire Department. And then most recently, last week, the public open house and grand opening. So we've been real busy over the last 4 months, and we have one more event this year that we'll be coordinating, and that will be the Christmas tree lighting with the caroling, and probably the Grinch will be back in the township again. And we will be doing that at the Westwood Mall as well this year. We just felt it was a little bit better to keep it over there this year. It helps, you know, if people have shopping to do or whatever. It kind of brings business into that facility, and a lot more room for parking or whatever. And we already have the stand over there for the Christmas tree. So for this year, the Christmas program will be over there as well. Next year, the Community Day will go back to the first Saturday of the month of August, so that'll be Saturday, August 2nd. This year we had moved it to the third Saturday of August because we ran into a conflict with our fire department volunteers. They had a firemen's tournament this year that they were out of town for, and they're such a big part of helping us with this Community Day that we moved the event. But this coming year now, for 2014, we'll go back to the first weekend of August. We feel we have a better turnout because we don't have anything that we're competing against. And even though we didn't have anything directly in the area we were really competing against this year, it was the weekend with the UP State Fair. And a lot of people go, you know, and go camping. We did have a lot of positive feedback for in regards to the softball tournament this year. Everybody, the guys really liked the mush ball, that they didn't have to bat opposite-handed, and we had a lot of positive feedback where, well, if I'd known that, I would have gotten a team together. So we anticipate next year for the softball tournament to even be more better with more teams attending. And we will have the showdown again next year, which is a big draw. We get a lot of people who come just to listen to the music with that. And we had 4 winners this year that actually went on to the Wisconsin state competition that were at our level this year at Lions Field. So it's a national competition, so it's really cool that we have that at Lions Field. We're also going to bring back the dunk tank. A lot of kids really miss that. And we're going to continue to have Little League do their ice cream fundraiser. I mean, those kids selling dollar ice cream cones made about $250. Which is pretty neat. And, you know, it's an investment for the kids into their facilities that they play at. So we really like the idea of having them come and do something the day of the event. We've also secured 2 inflatables for next year with Jumparoos. We are not going to go with Abracadabra out of Gladstone for next year because we had ordered 2 this year. They only showed up with 1, and that's an issue when they're an hour away from us. So we found a local vendor, and we've already talked to them about running 2 inflatables next year. So we've got things pretty well set in line for next year, know what we want to improve on and expand. So, you know, we've got 3 major events now that we've established, and we really have a plan for each event. And so, you know, anybody stepping in on our committee or whatever, it's very easy now. You know, there's a routine there, there's a plan there, the contacts are established, and so things go pretty smoothly with planning things. So it's going real well, guys. So thanks for the opportunity to do these things in the township. So does anybody have any questions for the events?
The band did pencil themselves in for next year. So.
Wonderful. They were awesome. Really, really awesome. And I think next year, you know, if we go back to that first Saturday in August, I think we'll have an even larger crowd. But there was a lot of positive feedback about the band. They were very, very good. So, And the concession stand, I mean, firemen really knock themselves out on cooking. They do a great job. So, couldn't do it without them.
So Leanne, I'd just like to say, from the board, and on behalf of the board and on behalf of the township, thank you guys so much, because the event committee really makes this happen. And it's Julie Peterson, you, and Todd Nordyke, who are really the driving force behind it.
Oh, and Pete and Danny
Pete,
and
Danny, yeah.
and Randy is phenomenal. I mean, anything we need, he's right there. And Jason does our posters for us and gets us everybody who donates anything or volunteers or whatever gets a handwritten thank you any event that we do, and we all sign it. We feel that that's very critical. People are more apt to read a handwritten thank you note versus a letter that came off from the computer, you know, so.
I did have some feedback from some of the teams that played. They are looking forward to next year. They think that more teams will be involved. In fact, they asked if we could start it on a Friday, so it's something to consider. They also said that if we would just provide some hardware trophies for first, second, and third, that they guarantee that more teams will be involved because they like to win hardware.
Okay.
And there were some teams who came and watched that weren't involved in it, who said, we didn't know it was going to be like this. We'll be in next year, so I think that's important to consider too.
Okay, and I'd like everybody, if you guys have probably seen it, but there is a really awesome plaque that's hanging in our new community room that has an 8x10 picture of the winning team from this year's softball tournament, and below that, the plaque states, it has all the mini little gold pieces where you can write in the year and the name of the team that won the tournament. So, you know, again, establishing this tradition of the softball tournament for our community day. And, you know, it's hanging in the community room, so when that room gets rented out or utilized, you know, people can go, oh, I know who that is, or remember when we played in that softball tournament and whatever happened, you know. So anyway, that's up, but yeah, that's a good point. We can look into that. I'll make a note of that for next year.
For those of you who don't know, it was the township team that captured the tournament this year. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yes, they beat out my Select Realty team.
Sorry, Leanne.
Yep. What was it, by one?
By one run.
By one run,
It
okay.
was 3-2. So
Let's clarify that. Okay.
It was a great game, and it was a great tournament. Hats off to Whitney Brugman for organizing it again. She did a fantastic job. I mean,
Yes.
she's tireless in putting this together for us. If it wasn't for volunteers like her, we couldn't do it.
And she is a young college student who is a township resident. She goes to a school up in Duluth, Superior, and she plays ball for them. And she's actually been invited, she's a good ball player, she's been invited to Aruba to play in some international tournament next year. And she fully intends to organize our tournament again. So she'll be 3 years coming up with working with us. So that's awesome to have a young person like that on board. And she organizes everything, you know. She just asks for a little bit of guidance when she has questions on things. And other than that, she just takes it and runs with it. So it's really a great thing.
She did call me and ask me about reserving the new township community room for a fundraiser to help her raise money to go to Aruba to play ball next year.
Yes.
And I will ask the board at that time to waive the fees for her, because it's a good way to pay her back for all she's done for us over the last couple of years.
That would be great. And the letter that was written for her on behalf of her volunteer services, she was utilizing that to apply for a scholarship that would help pay for her funding to go to Aruba. So, because it's quite costly. It's like I think a $2,500, $3,000 ordeal. So anyway, that would be awesome. So anything else for events? Because I have one more thing to talk to you guys about. Okay. A couple weeks ago, I was approached by Jerry Irby. He used to be the mayor of the city of Marquette. And I know Jerry from 20 years ago when I was president of the Marquette area JCs. And he also knows my husband through Kiwanis. And he approached me that they were putting together a committee to sustain the fireworks for the Marquette community. And because the other committee has kind of retired themselves, they're no longer in effect. And they didn't want this new committee to be a Marquette City committee or a Marquette City project. They felt that it was a community effort here because everybody goes to the fireworks we're in the Marquette area. It's not, you know, just Marquette City residents. It's Chalkley Township, Marquette Township, City of Marquette, all of your guests. And so I went, first of all, and they were looking for a representative from Marquette Township, and they saw my name in the newspaper and heard it on the radio or whatever with the events committee, so he called me. And I talked to Randy about it, and you know, first of all, wanted to know whether or not you guys wanted me to represent you, and Randy said it was perfectly in line with what I was doing, and that go ahead and go to the meeting. So I did, and it's a pretty impressive committee of people. Tom Baldini is our president or chairperson. Pat Black from the Convention Visitors Bureau is on there. Rosemary Smith, owner of Eagle Radio. Jerry Irby, Christine Pasola from the Landmark. Ian Davis, he is a representative through Tom Belt with the fire department for safety, to oversee safety stuff. Mona Lang with the executive director for the DDA. Dan Freeberg, who is the president of the Chalkley Township Business Association, so Chalkley Township is represented as well. Sue Halisti, I think that's how you say her last name, and she is with the Lake Superior Community Partnership, and then of course myself on behalf of Marquette Township. So we are a committee for trying to raise funds to sustain the fireworks in the Marquette area. And we've come up with a plan, and we went to and presented some information to the Marquette Board of Light and Power to work in conjunction with them for some fundraising. And I can't elaborate too much on it because we haven't actually sat down with them to lay out how everything works, but just to give you an idea, there are other power companies in the state that have like foundations and different things set up, and where money is actually collected and it's put into a fund that, you know, takes care of certain things like fireworks or whatever. So we're currently in talks with the Marquette Board of Light and Power on that, and we've already raised the $9,000 that we need to put a deposit down for October 1st with it's called Great Lakes, or wait, what is it called? Great Lakes Fireworks. So we have a contract with them, and we have to put down a $9,000 deposit by October 1st. And I believe what we're initially going to sign a contract for $25,000 of fireworks. And if, depending on what kind of money we raise, perhaps we'll extend that and maybe buy more fireworks. We just didn't want to go overboard to start out with. So anyway, that's kind of where that committee's at, and it's a real, I'm sure you recognize names on the committee, and it's a real strong group of people who really know how to get things done, and it's a community effort. It's not, you know, just the city of Marquette, and it's a real pleasure to work with these people. So any questions about that, or?
No, not seeing it.
Okay. And one of the things is that I know you're starting your budget planning for next year. So if that's, and I know that the township already contributes to that fund, so I would ask you to consider that again. And what they're looking for is to sustain a fund so that we don't have to go back and ask for donations year after year and start from square one. And this will be held accountable. Any donations made, even by the public, will be tax deductible and will be accountable through the Lake Superior Community Partnership Foundation, and, you know, all very formal. There are bylaws for our committee. It's all laid out very, very well. How you conduct your meetings in the formal parliamentary meeting process is how we conduct our committee meetings as well. So very great group of people and good committee.
Great. Thanks,
Okay.
Leanne.
Yep,
Thanks for the representation.
you're welcome.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. concludes board member comment. If members of the board wishing to make comment may do so at this time. Pete?
I'd just like to thank the people, the residents who came out and seen the new township hall and the fire department, and all the good comments. They're very happy to see what, come and see what we had up here, and they're very proud of it, so thank them for coming.
Dan?
I agree with Pete. The weather probably wasn't the greatest, but I was very happy with the turnout that we did get. So both the fire department and the township hall were spick and span and ready to go.
Clerk Charlie?
I echo the other two board members. Good attendance at the open house and fire hall, even it was a pretty crappy day weather-wise, one of those fall days. And hopefully this meeting we got the camera moving and close-ups, and hopefully things are better. Hopefully the sound's better too. So we are working on it for you folks.
Thanks, Randy. Ernie?
I think I have to echo them. It was a great day. The weather wasn't the greatest, but the people coming had a great time in that. A lot of good comments about the building, and they really enjoyed walking through it and seeing what we did in the last year and a half in that. So they really enjoyed it. So.
Ann?
And same with,
Ditto.
yeah, ditto.
Well, I didn't get to the open house, I'm sorry. I was at a banquet that night. I also had a conflict the night of the last library meeting, and I asked Treasurer Johnson to go in my place. So I don't know if he wants to comment on that, or if you were going to type something up, or...
I will comment on that at the last,
Okay.
at the last board comments in that.
He did share his comments with me, Lynn, and I think that's given us a lot to talk about.
I'd like to see it as an agenda item later.
It will be on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you.
I would echo what everybody said. Hey, thanks for coming out. It wasn't the best weather-wise, but it was a great opportunity for us to show off the new facilities. We're very proud of it. We're proud of the amount of time that it took us to vet all of our options and be able to move forward in the manner that we did. We heard nothing but positive comments from the folks who were in attendance. And we did this week receive an email message from a gentleman who questioned whether this board had gone against the wishes of the people because they had voted down the millage for building a new township hall. And I just want to set the record straight. This board didn't go against the wishes of any township residents that we heard from. We held probably over, close to 24 meetings in going through and reviewing all of our possible options for moving forward over the course of 3 years. And we held them in various locations throughout the township, making sure that everybody had the opportunity to have their voice heard. In fact, I don't think that this board could have done any more than they did, number one. Number two, there was no millage defeated for the construction of these township facilities. So I'd rather that didn't spread throughout the community because it's just blatantly false, and I want to make sure that we nip that in the bud immediately. I'm very proud of the work that this board did. It wasn't like we were all of one like mind. It was a lot of hard work. It was being responsive to the folks who took the time to have their voices heard. And the result is what you see in front of you today, including the community center and the new fire hall. It's put us in a position to meet the needs of this community for the foreseeable future, for 50 years and beyond. And it was done in a very fiscally responsible manner. And if you have any questions or you don't believe what I just said, by all means, please come into the township hall, give me a call, we'll schedule a meeting, and I'd be happy to go through all of the information with anybody so that we can set the record straight. We're a small community, and I don't like to have naysayers out there that are spreading false information, especially when we took the time and did it right. I think that, like I said, there's always going to be some in the crowd, but anyone who was in attendance, we didn't hear anything that was negative about the facilities. Folks are real proud of what we've done, and I think we represent the community very well. With that, we will close board member comment. There is no forum discussion. We'll move to agenda item number 9A, Township Facilities Construction Update on Public Works. Manager Gerard.
Don't have a whole lot to report. Public Works plan is moving forward. It's scheduled to come back to the planning commission, I believe, at your next meeting for final approval and then construction. Once it gets back to the board here, the planning commission's recommendation will come back to the board for your final approval, and we'll be going from there. I think you'll be pleased with what you see.
Randy, is it what they've put together and just so that it's out in public knowledge, now all of that is being bid through the Builders Exchange in Marquette?
It will be a different situation. It's the third phase of our three-phase project, and it's a little bit different because it is not in the Cornerstone Business Park, which means that the covenants that applied to these buildings, the Township Hall Community Center and the Fire Center, Fire Rescue Center, do not apply to the Public Works facility, so that will all be bid. The subcontractor is Hall Construction, who worked on that facility as well as building the new facility for the fire department. And he will be bidding all of the aspects of the job that his particular company doesn't do for construction publicly through the Builders Exchange.
Thank you. Any questions about that from any board members for Randy?
In fact, two of the bid segments have already gone out.
No? That's all, and there's no questions. We'll move to 9B. Continued consideration of the township facility fees. You do have a transmittal from Manager Gerard dated September 12th, titled the subject is Township Community Center draft use and fee structure. He does note in there that the updated items were in red. We still need formal legal review, but preliminary review has occurred and they haven't seen anything that concerns them. Randy does make a plea as the township property manager that we reconsider the concept of alcohol use, although I believe the board was of a mind that it was part of it. But he did make the plea, so it's out there for the board, as well as the overall agreement with the changes that we had discussed at the last meeting. Open it up for board member comments.
I just think we should, we do what we have to do to protect ourselves. I guess we sort of, when it was being built, we said that it's going to be a community hall and they can have different weddings and receptions and stuff like that. But I just think we have to do what we have to do as far as telling people they have to have insurance for this, for our protection. And we want to protect what we have right here, so.
Thanks, Pete. Dan, any comment?
No.
Clerk Tari?
It looks like what we talked about last time, so I have no comment.
Ernie?
I think this is what we talked about, and I can see you put in the open flame in there, and that this time too, which, so. I think as far as the alcohol, to me, we can go forward. We have a problem. We just we just eliminate it, no longer available, and that we see any problems with it and that, so. Give it a try, and like Pete says, it's a community building, we'll give it a try overall and then go from there.
Dan?
Well, I like it too, and then I agree also with his comment, like if we go along on something, we can always look at it again. I think it looks good.
Lynn?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. At least try it. I mean, we've had to do that in my business too. Sometimes you change the rules as you're going along, but that's what the public wants.
Mhm.
And if it ends up getting too costly, then we have to look at it again.
Randall, any last minute plea to change it?
No, it actually wasn't me. Basically what it amounted to is all of all the townships that we contacted that around the state that offer their facilities for public use, it was exactly 50-50. Half of them do not allow alcohol in any form or smoking in any of their property, and the other half either have no restrictions. Most all require a license, but those that had restrictions, allowed alcohol with restrictions. It was basically limited to either time frame or it was limited to the type of alcohol, like no red wines, no red liquids. If they had carpeting, things such as that. So, on that basis, I wanted to bring it back to the board since it was 50-50 on the responses, just to throw it back out there in my role as the property manager to let the board take their position. Now, the only other items that I wanted to comment on that was significant discussion at the last meeting was the very first one was with regard to the insurance. Our insurance carrier is adamant that we have to from their standpoint, request at least $100,000 coverage. Now, that can be in combination with your private property homeowner's insurance and, and supplemental, but they don't want to see us do anything less than that in terms of coverage on their building. Brand new buildings that they've got insured, and, they're insured for the full value, so we want to protect that. The other item, there was a question about the smoking issue, the state law. The state law is, like most state laws, ambiguous. It is not specific. I did talk with the local enforcing agency, which is the Marquette County Health Department, and they said that the regulation requires smoking be excluded from a reasonable distance. And their definition of reasonable is anywhere from 0 to 50 feet. So I'm plugging it right in the middle at 25.
Okay, thanks, Randy.
Just following one comment of Randy on red wine, and looking at our carpet and that, it may not be a bad idea to think about wine or something like this, because it's going to get spilled. There's no question about it. So it may be that we want to look at something like that so we don't run into that, because it's going to be very difficult for the renter to come in and clean the rug if you get red wine on it. So.
Quite frankly, that was the reason that I brought it back, was for that, specifically that discussion, because you're absolutely right. I can't remember the last wedding reception that I went to that before didn't end up soaked. And it just happens.
Yeah.
If you're using clear liquid or something other than red wines or red type liquids. In fact, that's what the two that restrict from that standpoint said no red liquid. One said specifically wine, and the other said liquid.
Gatorade.
I think we had, one of the things that we did with carpeting in there was with the ability, although it's been stain guarded, is the ability that we can change out small portions of it from stains as need be.
We actually had a double stain guard, just for that reason. And we have had discussion about putting a temporary floor in for dancing and things such as that, acquiring, similar to what was done at Lower Harbor with the last fest. Basically, there was a portable floor that was put down there in sections for people to dance on. Not that expensive to do that.
Okay.
Probably less expensive than previously replacing the carpets.
Other comment?
No.
That's it. That's all I had.
Pete?
I just want to ask Randy about the floor, because we talked about it before. And who's going to put the floor in? The township is expected to have a portable floor, or the people who are renting it?
That would be something, if we were going to go in that direction, that I would recommend that we supply, and we have our building and grounds.
Put it
folks
together,
Put it
take-
down.
We would probably supply it for a cost.
Correct. For certain functions, if there's going to be alcohol at the functions, and those are the ones we would use. And we've already got, as you would imagine, a fairly lengthy list of people that have called. And they're not all wedding receptions. A lot of them are birthday parties and things like that that we're not expecting alcohol to be included in. But for wedding receptions and things such as that, we would employ the floor.
Ernie?
I know we talked about not putting anything on the walls or anything else, but we also looked at putting those clips on the ceiling.
We're going to do that.
You're going to do that, okay.
Yep. Those will be installed before we start renting it.
I think your notes of caution about alcohol are well received. I mean, everybody understands that introducing alcohol into an event certainly may not be without its issues. In fact, we have a member of the Marquette County Sheriff's Department in the audience, and I'm sure he would concur with that statement. But I think that, I think we do try it. I mean, the $100,000 liability limit, typically, if you are a homeowner, you already have that policy and you have that coverage. It's just a matter of providing
Usually at least at that level.
the proof to us when you rent it. If it's alcohol going to be used, it's $300,000. You may need to get a rider to do so. But if you want to rent the facility and you want to have alcohol there, I think it's a small price to pay to protect us from any liability. I think that
Really, that increase in insurance isn't for damage to the building, it's for injury.
liability from the consumption of alcohol. I think that you put in everything that we asked for. Now, my only question would be, can we approve it contingent upon final legal review so that it doesn't have to come back before the board unless there's substantial changes?
I don't think you're gonna have any issue with legal review. A lot of this was in our previous agreement, and most of the rest of it is worded very similarly to what other communities are already using that are happy with the review. So I'm not anticipating any issue, and I think it'll be a fairly quick review.
And I would entertain a motion to approve and move forward and then allow the township to begin taking reservations for the hall
I'll make the
moving
motion.
forward.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. If there's no other comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes.
So by doing this, now the manager can accept and start moving forward on
We
it.
had targeted October 1st as our
Okay.
starting date, basically, so we can now
Make it official.
make it official.
Great, thank you. Next item on our agenda is 9C, discuss the budget work session schedule. I don't expect that we're going to plan them all out right now, but I think it would probably behoove us to get something on in our schedules, at least for at least a couple of initial meetings. We normally do plug them in with our regular meetings, and we do have a meeting scheduled for October 1st is the next meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
And for that meeting, by that meeting, you will have the recommended budget.
So we have a week before then if we want to meet earlier for any preliminary discussions, or we would plan it on the 1st, although I will tell you that I will not be in attendance at that meeting. I don't plan on being in town. I have been called out of town for a meeting down in Appleton.
We have road committee on that night too, before the meeting, so.
Yeah,
And I also won't be at that meeting on the 1st. I'll
okay.
be out of town.
So you guys, Dan and I are fine with it. If you
Thanks a lot.
It'd be fun with me. We really are fine with it. But I don't know what the board's preference is. Would you prefer to meet some point next week and have preliminary discussions about where we're at on one evening, or?
I think we should do the water budget that 1st of October. You guys are gonna be gone.
I think that's a great idea.
Sounds great to me.
Come up with whatever you come up with, and we're okay with it, but
I'm good with the week before if you want one of them days. One day I can is on Friday.
is there a day that works for people? Like, is Tuesday, since we're used to meeting on Tuesdays, is Tuesday the 24th available? Would you like to come in for an hour and just have a preliminary discussion about the budget moving forward?
What time?
What works? I mean, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
I think 6 to 7's fine, and then we limit all our budget sessions to 2 hours or less. That seemed to help last year.
Question I have, will we have enough information to,
We have some preliminary budgets, and I think that enough to where I can, we haven't had the conversations, sit down with department heads on the proposed budgets that have come in to date. Or I haven't, but I would be prepared to provide you with some of the information on it, as long as we understood this as preliminary information and subject to change before it comes to us as a full budget.
Are we still gonna try to set some other meetings for the budget tonight, or are we gonna do them that night?
That's fine. I mean, or we can set, one for next Tuesday and one on the 1st. I still think, even though Dan and I won't be here, that you guys should spend some time, because the full budget will be in, and it's an opportunity. I mean, if you want to look at some of the I don't want to say lesser, but smaller budgetary amounts and look at those, because those are some conversations that I think Dan and I will have had the opportunity to review it, and if we have any comments, we can certainly leave written comments behind for the board. Secretary?
Yeah, I think my budget is pretty much done, so that general fund, I think Treasurer Johnson's budget is
It's all done.
is pretty close to being done. So
It's
maybe
done.
we can wrap up some of those smaller budgets that are, I only have a couple elections next year, and I don't have major needs for anything. So maybe we could do that, and then, it seems to me the only budgets that are in contention is the public works budget, so that probably should be the last one, and that's the one we usually struggle over, so,
Well, we have more time to review it, that's for sure.
yeah.
So the 24th, we're coming at 6 to 7.
Everybody's good for the 24th, 6 to 7?
I won't be
out of
here.
town.
I'll be
I
gone.
leave the 22nd, so.
Okay.
I'll be gone also.
Okay.
On the-
Everybody else, will we have 5 of us will be here?
Mhm.
Okay, let's meet on it, and at least we'll have a preliminary And then we'll plan one for that first. And like I said, I don't think you guys will spend a great deal of time, but I think if
5 to 7?
you either put it as, we're gonna go 6 to 7 on the 24th.
So then we're gonna have to reschedule the road committee meeting?
That might be have to be canceled.
Is your road committee meeting on the 24th?
But Dave is
It's
out
on
of
the
town, so
1st.
maybe we can change that, so.
Okay.
You're talking about the first
On the
now,
first,
right?
I'm
On
sorry.
the first.
Yeah,
on
the
the first.
first,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, on the first, we can hold a budget session as part of the regular meeting and just do it in the forum discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Just limit it to an hour,
Right, limit
45
to an
minutes.
hour or less, so that, you know, it's just holding your same time frame from 7 to 9:30, and it will be the second forum discussion, so you can pull the plug on it as it gets, if you know, before you go on. And then if we want to set any dates after that, I'm game. Does anybody know their schedule through October, or would you rather, I mean, you guys can set them on the first, and Dan and I will make every effort to, Dan, when will you be back in town?
The 6th.
Okay. So if you want to make some of the following, if you want to set budget dates on that first meeting for the following week, I don't think Dan or I would object to that. I'm wide open that following week,
I am also.
Me too.
so we will set it for the 24th. We'll add it into the forum discussion, the second forum discussion on the first.
Okay, yeah.
And that'll at least get us started in the process.
Yeah, because on the first, we can make some additional accommodations for meetings during
Yeah.
our board meeting. Well,
Absolutely.
you and Dan won't be here, but maybe we should schedule a few more, and then if we gotta cancel them, it's always easier to cancel than schedule, so.
Dan said he was wide open. I'm also wide open on that week, the 7th through the 11th, so I think I could meet any.
How about on a Wednesday?
That's a planning commission meeting.
Planning
Oh,
at
How
7,
about the Tuesday, the 8th, like 6 to 8 or something like that?
Yep.
Okay.
that's fine.
that'd be all right. 6 to
Same time, 6, 7?
6 to 8,
6 to 8.
Thursday?
Tuesday.
No, on the next
8.
one, Thursday,
Oh.
for the next one.
Well, you have a meeting on the 15th, you could
Yep.
also put it as
We'll
part of the
put it on the
second forum
15th.
discussion on the 15th.
So jump from the 8th to the 15th,
Yeah,
At what time, 6?
That would give us
temporary forum.
the 24th,
Oh.
the 1st, the 8th, and the 15th.
We should be pretty well on our way by then.
I would
Yeah.
hope so.
Can we establish, in our discussion today at the Business Association, we pointed out to the board that these discussions were coming up. So if we can determine what we're going to talk about at any of these so that I can tell them, or the,
No regular
well,
meetings.
I'd have to let them know ahead of time. Our next meeting is the 15th of October. So all
On
of
the
these are before
15th,
that.
well, you would be
I
able
have to let
to
them know.
Provided we would have 2 in by then, I mean, I guess, but the first one is gonna be more, I think that first one from 6 to 7 is more about setting up where we're going, what we wanna discuss, which budgets are we gonna go through.
Okay,
And then after that,
So the next
whatever you guys
3.
get through on the first will help determine what we're gonna be doing on the 15th and moving on, maybe by the 15th and, the 8th and the 15th, that we're already, you know, we might be into public works or.
okay, I'll just send them the dates then without any specifics as to what we're talking about.
And then fill it in
So
later.
they can, okay,
Great.
And once we determine that, we can put it on our website, so they can then go to the website and see exactly what we'll be talking about.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we schedule 9/24, which is Tuesday, September 24th, from 6 to 7. October 1st, 2013, as part of the board meeting, as a second forum discussion. October 8th, that following Tuesday, from 6 to 8. And October 15th, as part of the second forum discussion, as budget work sessions. And I'll have to post those.
Support?
Got a motion and support. Any other comment? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Those dates passed. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is new business. Consider the budget amendment number 2013-12. Clerk Rattari.
Budget amendment 2013-12. It's pretty straightforward. It'll be referenced in the minutes as also. And I make a motion to approve that, and the highlight of that is going to be authorization is requested to reclassify expenditures in the general fund. The building and grounds costs have increased due to the higher than estimated labor hours charged to the department, as well as supplies, repairs, and maintenance, which is the old township hall, and vehicle expenses. The general services administration department is requiring additional supplies, $5,000 to the new township hall office supplies, as well as larger items such as a fax adapter kit and monitor. An additional $35,000 is requested for tax tribunal legal fees. And the offset will come from elections, $1,000, as the August Marquette Area Public Schools election was less than estimated. Also, the professional services, contracted services will decrease by $53,000 as the cost of the disposition of the old township hall will be minimal, as well as the anticipated US 41 corridor aesthetic improvement grant production. And I move that.
Second.
Good motion, a second. Any board member
I
questions?
just have a question, and I should have called Randy on the repairs and maintenance of the old township hall.
Literally a week before we vacated the hall, the air conditioning compressor went out.
Okay, you answered the question.
Yep, and we had to replace it. That's part of our agreement is we're maintaining the building until we transition.
Okay.
Dan?
The US 41 corridor grant, I'm assuming that's not in play yet.
It is, the road commission, the MDOT, at our last quarter, US 41 corridor committee meeting informed us that the funds for the aesthetics have been taken from them. They do not have them, so we're approaching it from a different standpoint now. They can no longer be the grant applicant. We have to be the grant applicant, and they will support and submit the grant for us. So we're basically just changing horses. It's the same direction, the same project, but as usual, the state is putting a new roadblock in place.
Okay. Other questions? Seeing none, Clerk
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Pompo,
Yes.
Trustee Durant,
Yes.
Trustee Truscott,
Yes,
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
and Supervisor Limata.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Hey, you guys, would you consider moving up item number 10E, the law enforcement, up to 10B and pushing everything down just in the interest of not making you sit here?
Yeah, actually, I was going to request that because Captain Lemire needs to go to training out on the Sands Plains here pretty quick.
I'll move that we move up 10E to before 10B.
Support.
support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. I appreciate that. Manager Gerard?
Jumping into the subject, it's a subject that this board has touched on several times through the budget process as well as in response to some of the issues that we have going with the tax tribunal, and that is the amount of time that our contracted sheriff's deputy spends in the retail fraud issues here in the business corridor, particularly in light of the situation with the majority of the businesses filing appeals with the tax commission seeking to reduce their taxable value, thereby reducing our revenue stream. The situation has been discussed with Sheriff Lovelace several times over the last couple of years. He and I have discussed it. The Sheriff's Department has the same concerns that we do, because we are specifically spending roughly $135,000 a year for law enforcement services here in the township for patrol activities and for intervention of illegal activities, and most of that money is being expended with shoplifters, and that is not the reason this board or I recommended, the board approved funding for additional law enforcement. It was specifically for patrol activities for mitigating speeders, mitigating traffic incidents, mitigating alcohol abuse, mitigating meth labs, and everything else. It was for those more serious types of issues. So the sheriff and I had a very recent discussion. In fact, last weekend we had a discussion that he was involved himself personally with some shoplifting issues here in the township, and asked to be able to bring this to the board's attention. The sheriff's department is putting together some statistics that will demonstrate what the expansion has been in terms of the demand placed upon specifically upon our deputy, not even mentioning the standard patrol activity that the regular sheriff's department deputies do, but in particular our specifically targeted deputy that we fund in terms of the expansion of the demands in the retail sector among some of the vendors here in the township. And it's primarily the larger retail establishments that is occupying that time. I did ask if either the sheriff or Captain Lemire could be here this evening. We do anticipate that we'll be your meeting on October 1st, where some statistics would be able to be provided to you, and we're in the process of putting that together currently. I think the sheriff, I talked to him just before this meeting, and he was fairly confident that they've got it almost pulled together, but not quite ready for his presentation tonight. So what I would like to do is to have this be an addition to your October 1st meeting, and just ask Captain Lemire if he'd like to make a couple of comments to you in that vein. But that's the thrust of it. It is, what has that demand been, to give you a little better picture of what we're actually talking about. We're all guessing at this point, so we'll have some actual statistics to demonstrate what's been happening with our deputies.
Thanks.
Captain?
Captain Lemire.
Well, just to give you an idea, you think of shoplifting as shoplifting, somebody lifts something. We've met with the prosecutor's office to try to curb this, to try to have some avenues for the retailers to use other than the criminal system, which they do, which is civil. But there are some retailers that are gonna go basically criminal, and that's it. To do just a simple average shoplifting case, and I'll call it shoplifting because it's familiar to all of us, is about 2 hours. Okay, and that's not counting whether or not the person has to be taken into custody. If they're taken into custody, then they have to be fingerprinted and processed and booked, you know, which adds to that time. And there have been times that specific retailers have waited till the township deputy's on, call them to that store and hand them 5 retail fraud complaints that they've taken over the weekend. So it's plain and simple, it's getting out of control. And you know, something has to be done, other departments in other parts of the country have done certain things with this retailer to curb that, but you know, that's a decision that we'd have to make jointly between us, the prosecutor, and this board, so.
I think we're very interested, Captain Lemire, and one of the things we have is that as a small community, and we hear it from residents that, I mean, they like seeing the presence of the patrol car out, right? Out through the neighborhoods, out, you know, and when we lose that ability because you have to answer the retail fraud complaints, we certainly want our retailers to be protected. They're paying taxes that goes towards the additional contract as well. But the tax tribunal does put additional pressures on us. You talk about reducing our revenues by $74,000 annually. You know, well, what can we buy with $74,000 in additional police protection?
Right.
And I think it's become a very real concern for not only the board, but we're hearing it from residents. They want to see the presence out there. And I think, you know, one of the conversations that we intend to have this year during our budget sessions, we're contracting for 60 hours a week, correct?
Correct.
Is that even enough? I mean, we're...
No,
No, I'm asking the question, is it enough?
Yeah, we need your opinion.
Well, we dropped it to 80. Previously had
prior
80
to
hours.
2003, you had 2 full-time deputies.
Okay.
We participated in a COPS grant back then and included the township, and we increased those hours. After 2003, we dropped back down to the 60 hours that we are currently at. You can ask any law enforcement officer that responds to complaints in Marquette Township that they could use their own full-time, at least 3 people.
Okay.
I mean, it's getting to the point, and you've got some more major retail and commercial entities coming to the township. It's not getting smaller, so.
And it is. We are experiencing growth pains, basically, is what we are. You know, over the last since 2003. Everybody can recognize easily what's happened here in the township since 2003. It is continuing. We have another busy building season coming up next spring. We already know we have 2 major projects for next spring, and several others that are in the pipeline. But Supervisor Lemiter raises a good point. The impact of just the one decision so far that's come down is $74,000 impact in the township. That's half. That's more than half of what we spend annually for the additional police protection. It's roughly $132,000 that we put towards that 60 hours. So more than half of that expenditure is being eaten up by one or two, mainly one. Local retailer that's occupying that much of our deputies' time.
I mean, he'll be at the office doing a retail fraud report, a shoplifting report. And I've tried to let Central Dispatch know that, I'd rather the calls come to the deputy that works Marquette Township to know what's going on in the township, or, just the calls in general. But he'll be working on something. Central will give a phone call and say, hey, we got another retail fraud. And it's, like I say, it's getting to the point where, like Monday morning, they're stacking up, and sometimes they'll know who the offenders are, sometimes they don't. So then we have to go through the video with them. They'll show us, because we have to have, the proofs in order to bring to the prosecutor's office. So then we have time reviewing all the videos with them. And if we have to, you've all seen on the news where I've done press releases looking for certain people for certain crimes at that retail outlet. So, I mean, there's a lot more to it than just, and I know I've talked to a few of the board members here about, the time spent. It is what it is. And, I mean, he gets a call, he gets a call.
Right.
Now, the afternoon shift is, not as bad as the day shift, but.
Is there, to your knowledge, is there the ability for us, and we probably have to explore this from a legal standpoint, but can we word our contract as such that the deputy that we have for the township responds to township issues outside of retail fraud?
I'd have to defer that to legal counsel, obviously, because I don't know, the responsibility. They are tax, payers. If that was an option and that did happen, obviously the burden's going to shift to the other road deputies and the state police, because they take a fair number of those retail frauds when you don't have a car on. So,
is there enough time spent on retail fraud that it would warrant the township coming up with perhaps a creative way, like having a special assessment in the DDA boundaries that deals with law enforcement from a retail fraud standpoint? Would we have, would it be a 20-hour-a-week position? Would it be
in my opinion, we're past that point.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, we've met with them with the prosecutor's office. We put a threshold on the retail frauds. Anything under $25 we're not going to respond to. We're not coming to. I mean, honestly, we've been called for a 25-cent retail fraud. We're not going to submit a report, based on something like that. And we've tried to. Thing is, with that retailer, there's turnover, and they're in the process right now of turnover. So we're probably going to have a lull this week and next week. But when these new loss prevention specialists are brought on board, it's going to get right back to
it ramps back up again?
Ramps right back up.
The
Dennis?
question about tailoring the contract, remember, this is not required law enforcement services. The required law enforcement services are provided by the Sheriff's Department. What we're doing is purchasing. We are purchasing additional services, and I believe we can target that contract to the services that we wish to purchase. As a for instance, I think you could write an agreement with the Sheriff's Department for additional police protection specifically for traffic patrol and for neighborhood watch.
You in essence, direct our patrol. I mean, we're just a contractor. You tell us, and if we don't agree with it, obviously we could say, well, we don't agree with that. Then, but like I said,
we're not trying to exclude them. They pay taxes. They are a tax-paying entity in the community, and we want to provide them with police services. But there's got to be a balance somewhere. And it may be that we're not purchasing enough additional police services for we need.
Right.
So, yeah.
And you have the gamut here in the township with these types of businesses that are totally complacent and, you know, like happened with Sheriff Lovelace, that, I mean, they care, but hey, you know, walk out with $2,500 worth of merchandise. So, and then you have the other side of the coin, which is everything.
Right.
I mean, we also get called to that retailer if they're gonna pursue civilly with a shoplifting case, but the person isn't, because not everybody's cooperative, even though we'd like to think that. They're not cooperating with loss prevention. They'll call an officer, whether it's state police, sheriff, or the contract car, to come and identify the person just for purposes of identification, which, you know, I don't have a problem with, but, you know, it's still time. It's still
Right.
time.
From a millage standpoint, from a taxation standpoint, the sheriff's services that we fund basically from our base millage is the standard sheriff services. What we're spending for the additional 60 hours a week is taking general fund money from other issues, needs that the township has for additional law enforcement services. So that's why from that standpoint, I believe that you do have, and obviously we'll have to get a legal opinion on it, but I believe that you do have the right to direct where that money goes, because you could, in this budget cycle, could say, we're not doing that anymore. We're not gonna provide that additional 60 hours, we're gonna fix roads, we're gonna do this, we're gonna whatever, with that $130,000. So I think you do have the right to direct how that money is being utilized by the sheriff, whether it's drug intervention, whether it's addressing specifically the next
Directed
issue that's
patrol.
in the area, whether it's road patrol because of the issues that we have with speed and traffic in the corridor. You know, I would hazard to guess that if you ask 5, 6 out of 10 drivers on the US 41 corridor what the speed limit is, they'd say 55, 60. No, it's 45. 45 and 50. You don't hit 55 until you get west of Target. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that I think you have the right to direct how that money is being utilized.
Okay. I mean, we didn't expect to solve it tonight, but
Oh,
we're
no,
trying to
no.
get,
We're
we're
just
trying to
trying
get a feel
to
from,
understand.
you know, how do we
We
fix
have
it,
the
or
right to do that.
can we fix it, or,
And obviously, if there's an emergency at that retailer, I mean, we're bound to go.
Right.
You know, for obvious reasons, whether it isn't a bona fide emergency or, you know, it turns out not to be, you know, we still have that responsibility as a law enforcement officer in Michigan to respond, so.
Lynn, you had some comments?
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to figure out, because we had this discussion before. It was last year at least, and we were trying to figure out how to help, even with office work, or, you know, pay for somebody to take notes or do the follow-up stuff. But I guess I'm still confused, even if we do have a specific contract, that cooperative atmosphere that y'all have, the three of you, and even Northern in some cases, how would we get around that even if we did have a contract? Because you are obligated, whether it's your job or your oath to.
They have other means, though, that they can use at their disposal.
The
The
retailers?
retailer,
Okay.
yes. The majority of the retailers will go civil, which means they'll sue somebody, basically.
So it means
to
more
get
time
there.
for them and more of an investment, and
Right.
it's a little more serious.
Right.
It puts the onus on them
On
more.
them.
Okay, so if we decided that we were gonna add 20 hours to this contract and make it specific, so we'd have a deputy those 2 shifts, for whatever time frame we were looking at, and does that deputy then decide, or would dispatch decide which calls that they get to go
Dispatch,
on?
it all comes through dispatch for the
Okay.
most part, but,
So they could
so-
still get pulled away,
all right, right,
but for the most part, they would be doing whatever our laundry list said,
you're direct.
if we can do that. Okay. Makes sense.
But then again, you know, like, it's gotta be a collaborative decision here, because you're gonna, it's not only us, it's the state police that are involved, it's, you know, I mean,
And quite frankly, we may be reaching a point where the retailers have to band together like they do in Appleton and other places and secure their own internal security. Through a contract or, you know,
Right.
whatever.
Right. I wish there was an easy solution.
I do too, but it, you know, it's getting to the point where even the deputy is saying, you know, this is, you know, I mean, it's what we sign on for, but it's.
Right.
There's not a simple solution or an easy solution other than deciding what it is that you're trying to address with the additional funding that the township residents are putting forward.
So what direction are we gonna take, Dennis? Are we gonna try to address it in the budget session? Do we have a workshop with the sheriff?
I think we need to
Attorney,
keep the
or-
conversation going and see if there's anything that, I mean, we need to listen to the recommendations from the sheriff's department clearly, and I think that we've talked about it for the last few years, about are 60 hours enough, and can we afford more? And I think we really have to take a hard look at that this year in the budget. So I think we really have to talk about expanding where we're at. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want to expand if it's going to basically one retailer and all the time goes there, because we're spending taxpayers' money, and while they're a taxpayer, they're just one taxpayer out of a whole group, and they're consuming an inordinate amount of that extra time. And I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know how far we can go. It's probably gonna have to look, we may have to have this conversation with legal as well to see, maybe we can do some kind of a three-way partnership with that particular retailer, if they'd be willing to partner in a way that allows them to participate a little more heavily financially, if that's gonna be their policy moving forward, so that we can understand that, we can set maybe specific time frames when they'll be on retail fraud, and then they'll be on road patrol or through the neighborhood watch or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but I think we have to continue to have the conversation between the department, between the township and maybe between specifically one retailer.
In the meetings we've had, obviously, with the prosecutor, I thought, okay, well, maybe we're making headway here, but it's getting worse. I mean, there's, you know, and whether it's the economic climate or,
Right.
I mean, they have a lot of loss prevention.
I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to send a message, boy, don't
Right.
come here and do it, because if you do, we're gonna prosecute you for a stick of gum. While that's admirable,
The message isn't getting across.
I was gonna say, it's
With the
clearly not
repeat,
working.
with the repeat offenders that are coming through, it's not,
So that
yeah,
they may wanna take a different tact, because this isn't working.
right.
Okay. Pete?
Am I that naive that we could sit down with the person of the big box stores, the sheriff's department, and someone from, like you and Randy, sit down and try to work out some kind of, what we could do to, you know, sort of cut this out or cut it down on it, and tell them the expense that we're coming and we're not, it says right in here that basically it's for road patrol and stuff like that, and we're not getting that done, you know? So there gotta be an answer somewhere. You might have some, Dave, you might have some suggestions from the sheriff's department, how other areas do it, and, you know, maybe save us some time and you some money and time, and, you know, because when I talked to you before, you said, you know, hell, they're down there for 10 hours, you know? And they start stacking them up, and they go up
Well,
there,
that's
and
it.
they're down there for a whole shift, and
Right.
that takes the whole shift away from our township.
And they get accustomed to one law enforcement officer and the way that law enforcement
Right.
officer does it, which is the contract officer, so they hold all this, you know, instead of calling central,
Oh, sure.
you know, and having another car, whether the state or one of my other cars. I mean, you know, because our other cars take a lot of complaints
Sure.
from the
But they
that
know when he's coming
retailer,
on, they're gonna,
you know.
The last report, you had 15 retail frauds. So you say 2 or 3 hours per call, you got 15 of them?
Yeah, and that's
With the process.
an average, 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Could be longer, could be a little shorter, you know, but.
One question I do have for you, on your chart, can't see where you put retail
I
fraud.
don't put retail frauds because in our world, that's classified under larceny.
All right, okay.
You know, so every offense has a code under the state of
Yeah.
Michigan, and retail fraud falls under.
Well, I just want to look at it,
larceny.
because when you look at it, it shows the seriousness of the different
Right,
grants.
but I can pretty much guarantee you that 98% of those are probably from that one big box.
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
You
That
don't
kinda
have
tells
that
us
much,
what we
you
need
don't
to
have
know,
that
too.
much, you know, things being stolen from somebody's yard or their vehicle would fall under that also, but that 98% of that is
Yeah.
Okay.
retail
We'll be
fraud.
revisiting this for October 1st. It'll
Okay.
be out in your packets for the October 1st meeting.
And I'm polling around, I have some information, I have some contacts with communities and law enforcement agencies that have these retailers in their community. And the range of their reaction is everywhere, from we don't go there anymore to,
What are they getting for it, Dan? What are they getting if they get, if they plead guilty, what are they getting out of it? Nothing, slap in the hand?
that would be a prosecutor question.
But if you stole something worth $5 and it's probably.
Yeah, and we won't do anything under $25,
So
so.
I have to come back 5 times then.
We save up 5 of them.
And the people that are arrested are issued a no trespass order, which means, they're not supposed to go back. So if they get caught again, then they're also charged with trespass.
Do we have a lot of repeat?
Yes.
That answers your question about how stiff the punishment is
Yeah.
when they go back, so.
Taser them.
Okay, well, thank you, appreciate it. We're clearly gonna have to visit it again, but appreciate your
We
time
will.
tonight.
And like I say, I'll have a lot more stats. Like I say, I've got some feelers out there.
Maybe you'll find somebody who has this incredibly creative solution and we can adopt it, but it could happen, Dave.
It could. It could happen.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
The next item on our agenda is the new 10C, which is consider the road committee lighting recommendation. In your packet, stated September 12th, a transmittal from our planner and zoning administrator, Jason McCarthy, to the township board with regards to the planning commission concurrence with the road committee street lighting recommendation. Randy, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, just the first thing, I think that the board needs to look at your policy. I mean, that's, I know the roads committee and in some respects, so have the planning commission and recreation committee even have talked about lighting in terms of pedestrian ways and a variety of other things. And right now, the policy that the board has, not this board, but has been adopted by a prior board, specifies where we put lights. And it doesn't necessarily hit some of the things that we're now starting to deal with as we're getting expanded development, as we're getting more infill in Trowbridge Park, places that didn't have houses before now do. Small places have been replaced by big places, bigger places, so there's a number of issues. Plus we've got growth issues, natural growth, trees, shrubs, bushes, and that are obscuring roadways, obscuring intersections, making it darker in Trowbridge, in particular Trowbridge, but also in some of the other subdivisions that aren't part of Trowbridge. So what I would first suggest is that the board revisit your policy and make whatever changes to the policy that need to be done. Now, with regard to the recommendation that the committee has made, they're recommending placement of about 20 lights, well, exactly 20 lights. Chair of the committee, Dave Wiegand, was going to be driving around basically making sure of what's here. I did a quick calculation based upon the current cost of lights and poles. If all 20 of these need poles, which Dave is sure not all of them do, there are some existing poles there already. The maximum cost for doing this, if you wanted to do it in 2014 for all of these, including the monthly utility charge for the year, would be about $14,200 roughly.
Okay.
For the 20 lights, if they needed poles. If they don't need poles, that significantly reduces the cost. The poles are expensive. The poles are about $500 because that includes the installation of the pole. So
Okay.
the light themselves, if there's an existing pole, the lights are like $70. You know, I can tell you exactly.
I don't, my mind's back there.
85.54 for a standard light fixture. That's the arm attached to a pole. So if that's the direction that we're able to go, then that significantly increases the number of lights that can be put up.
Okay.
So what my suggestion would be is to allocate which I'm going to do, allocate in the 2014 budget $14,200 for the lighting street lighting. And then, through our discussion at the board level through the budget session, you can decide if that's what you want to do.
Okay, Ernie?
If we put
Put these new lights in, will there be that new LED light?
The LED lights, if you want to put the LED lights in, there's major cost difference there. The LED fixture is $516 each, but their electricity use is almost nothing, and they last forever. You're not replacing bulbs. That's part of our maintenance budget is we're replacing light bulbs replacing old fixtures, and they're about $750. They're actually $804 a month per light for the electricity. So we have about 180 lights right now. So you can multiply that out. So each regular light Durastar fixture now costs $85.54, and then it's $804 a month. If you wanted to shift to the LEDs, they give more light. It's more directed. I don't know if you're familiar with what an LED is. It's a tube, basically. It's a light emitting diode. It's a tube that just directs a beam of light. And there are multiple of those tubes in the light fixture. So it directs where the light is going. Much more directable than the Durastars that we have now.
Okay, Dan?
But more expensive as well.
Well, if I look at recommendation 2, which is to send it to actually go back over our street lighting policy, and the policy be adopted as an ordinance to facilitate future development and enforcement. If we go that route, would that not take care of the ones under recommendation 1?
Not necessarily, because they're not all, right now you don't define what a short sight distance is. This is an interpretation of what is short sight distance. So your ordinance would have to be much more defined. It would have to specify what that short sight distance is.
Well, I would think that we
But it
would.
could.
I would think we would want that in our ordinance. And then at that point in time, if we do adopt this ordinance, obviously we're going to be having to install a lot more streetlights, which I don't really see a problem with, other than the fact that won't be able to do them all at once, I don't assume. So
Probably phased.
I would say that it would be a phased-in type thing, putting so much money aside every year in the budget for 15, 20, 25 lights, whatever, till we get up to the point where the ordinance is in effect. But also, I like the idea that for future development enforcement, in fact, any developers coming in would have to actually supply these lights themselves. So we do know that there's going to be some major development going on here shortly. So I would think the quicker we get this in, the better. So if we take recommendation 2 with the idea that we actually come up with a short sight distance, whatever we pick or whatever.
I'm sure there are standards.
Right,
from the
right.
Commission or from the BLP.
So I would think that would take into consideration these specific problem areas here. We could tackle these specific ones, I guess, right off the bat. It doesn't matter, but as long as, to me, I would like to see us get the policy and ordinance in effect first.
What you're looking at right here is basically just Trowbridge Park. It does not include the new Wright Street, up to the school and that. This was done just to the Trowbridge Park area. This would just bring us back up to the ordinance that you already have. Not the ordinance, the policy that you already have. This would just get you there. This is not all new poles. Majorities are just additional lights, with maybe some possibly longer arms on it. Some dead-end streets, but with the dead-end street, you have to ask, people within 300 feet, you have to ask those people if they want one or not. They don't want it then. But just these one, they're just like I said, in the Trowbridge Park area. And also that would just bring it right up to our policy that we've had for years and years. Now, we met with the Planning Commission the other day, and that's why we want an ordinance on it, so when they do it, subdivisions come in, they'll have the lights included, they have to put one in. It's not like now we have to go back and try to catch everybody and put one on here. But a lot of the poles are already there. I wrote them myself. I started the survey along with Dave, and we rode up and down. He rode up, I rode up. There's so many, almost every street that we looked on and at night. And so this will be just getting it up to it. That's not taking care of the curves and a lot of the hills and that you have in the township. The next step is we'll have to do a better job of cutting back our trees and stuff like that, because that's what's making the streets awful dark also. So as long as you understand, this is not all new poles. There are very few poles in this one that if my memory serves me right. But this will just bring us up to the policy that we have right today. And then we should start working on a new policy. What do we really want? And, You have to have a curve of 40 degrees turn, you're supposed to have a light on it, darn thing. Any hillside you drop down, you have to have a light on it. Dead-end streets, you have to have one on, so, you know. I would say take the time to read what we have right now and what we can do and we should have done in the future, so.
Okay.
We're behind on our lighting, so.
Ernie?
Looking at what Randy said was $8 and some cents a month to run a light, and it costs $500 and some to put those new ones in. You're talking about a 6-year payback, between 6 and 7 year payback on those lights before you really get to the point and see the savings on it. But the other side of it, you'll have better lighting and that where you're at, so you have to kind of balance everything else.
Yeah, and there's less maintenance.
No.
There are some, Board of Light and Power has done several demonstration areas in the city of Marquette where they've installed those LED lights, and you can definitely tell when you're in them. They're a much brighter, whiter light. Some sections of Lincoln Avenue they've done. I think they did through the area where by the water tank on Lincoln, where the trail area is in there. I think they put some in there. And several places where they've done demonstration projects just to see how they do in the weather. You know, how well they last on our weather. And they seem to be doing pretty well.
Lynn?
I was going to follow up on a little bit of Pete's. We had quite a bit of discussion, especially Planner McCarthy was in favor of the newer, more efficient lights and the way they're shaped and down shot and everything. We talked a lot about that, and like Pete was saying, the idea was, in this instance, to get us to the point where we're even, fill in these areas where we're deficient on the policy, and then going forward, you know, look at those more expensive lights. This is something we could probably handle in the budget if the tax tribunal doesn't take another $15,000, and get us up to an even playing field, especially in Trowbridge, and then go from there and look at budgeting next year for something a little more expensive and more cost effectiveness.
I guess the only question I would have for you then, Randy, is I guess you would probably need a exact count of the affected areas and how many actually would need poles that you could have a firm dollar amount on whether or not we could swing it in the 2014 budget. And then also from the ordinance, how would you like to move forward on that? Is that something that you'd like the board to direct you to begin to draft, or would you like to see that referred to the planner?
Yeah, if you'd like to convert the existing policy to a draft ordinance, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Because I think that would be, you know, and like I say, you may want to bring Jason in as a planner with it as well, current planning aspects into it. The downlighting, I think, is important because it's a reason we're out in the township. We kind of like having what we have in the night sky, and I think it's important that does somewhat the new lights offer, is that ability to not impact that night sky kind of thing.
One of the issues that is an issue with that as well, and it doesn't matter whether they're LED lights or the Cobra lights or whatever, is as Pete mentioned, and I think Treasurer Johnson mentioned as well, is the foliage. The overgrowth of the trees hanging over the roadway is going to be an issue because you'll have a segment of your population that don't want those trees to be trimmed back.
Right.
But they need to be.
Dan?
And I think maybe a part of the policy or ordinance, I think, should probably stipulate what type of lights we want, because at some point, I mean, they're only going to move forward. You're not going to. LED is going to be the way it's going to be going continually. There's going to be a point in time for just for economics and.
Your ordinance is going to have to be specific.
Right.
But
Because it has to be enforceable.
can we can discuss the recommendation 1 during the budget session. I think Randy would be able to give us a much better idea of, I mean, if we can accomplish it in 2014, we'll accomplish it in 2014. If we don't have to have poles in there, then it's probably something we can afford.
That's what we're working on right now, is what actually is necessary to accomplish this, and then we'll try and build it into the budget.
Recommendation number 2, would you prefer a motion that directs you to move forward on putting that into ordinance form, or is that something you just want to?
I don't think you need a motion to ask for an ordinance, and we'll bring a draft ordinance back to you, and then you can decide whether you want to adopt it or not, or modify it.
How much time do you need?
Second meeting in October?
Okay.
Dennis?
Yeah.
One of the options that we talked about is that replace some of these with the regular lighting and then but we gotta do a new stretch or something, like on Wright Street, the new Wright Street on the curves, and I put all LEDs in there, but the fast and cheap way of doing it is they would get into, replace some of these with just the regular Cobra lights to get started to bring it up to the standard that we are right now.
Okay.
But anything new outside the Trowbridge Park, like on a highway or something like, I mean, in our area, put all LED in that.
Okay.
But it'll give you the opportunity to get into it, get it up to date, and then start planning for the future.
Okay.
Some of these have to be relocated on the corner of Warner and Commerce. That one's sitting way back. Maybe a longer arm or something like that would help that, so we don't have to move the pole or change a pole or something like that. So they are longer arms out there. I did some little research on that, and these different companies have the longer arm, so to put it out, if the pole is set back, like a lot of the older ones are, the longer arm will bring it out to the street. So
Thanks, Pete. I think we have a consensus that we have Randy move forward on it. Number recommendation that we'll deal with during the budget session, during the general fund discussion, and recommendation number 2. You can look forward to seeing it on your agenda of October 15th, of at least a preliminary look at what that ordinance might look like. Next item on our agenda is 10D, consider firefighter hiring recommendation. I have spoken a little bit on this. It goes back to direction that we received from Labor Council Aaron Graves. The memorandum that you have in your packet this evening on the firefighter hiring recommendation from Manager Gerard to concur with 2 individuals as paid on-call firefighters. Followed a transmittal to Manager Gerard from Chief Sims in regards to new hires. We have 3 openings in the fire department, and they interviewed applicants and had made a recommendation on moving forward with 2 of them. My recommendation to the board, based upon a review of my notes back from November of 2010, as well as March of 2011, in a similar situation, is that the recommendation from Aaron Graves as Chief Labor Counsel for us was that we make sure that these all go through the standard personnel policy, in that we advertise that we have openings available, the interviews are held, and the recommendation remains the same. Fire chief will make recommendations based upon those interviews, and to the township manager, who, if he concurs, will recommend those hires to the board for our approval moving forward. You're being asked tonight to make that decision, and my comfort level with it is that previously, again, back at the dates I cited, the recommendation was to make sure that we advertise the position and ran it through the personnel department completely. In this instance, the fire department reviewed applications that they already had, because they get them on a regular basis, and move forward. My recommendation to the board is that I would ask you not to approve these this evening, that we send it back, we do an ad, and see if there's any additional candidates. I don't think there's anything wrong with the candidates who were chosen. In fact, I think they're very highly qualified, and ultimately in the end may be selected anyways, but my comfort level goes back to where I think our direction was directed from Labor Council. I'll open that up as a board's discussion.
we had a session on this downstate, and basically, he said the same thing that you had just said, the procedure, how to handle it, to keep everybody clean in that, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Lynn?
From an employer's standpoint, it's very easy to either try to promote from within or consider people who walk in the door. I'm wondering, first of all, does Labor Council understand that these are applications that are already on file? Because, you know, public and private are different, again, as far as hiring policies. I know that. I'm not sure what ours are here. But we usually tell the applicants we have, you know, we keep them for 6 months active. Can we call you back within that time frame? So whether they've actually conducted an interview with us or not, you know, we're going to be looking for the highest and best qualified when we do the initial hiring, and then we keep those applications active as long as the people are willing, unless they're leaving the area or going back to school. So those kinds of people kind of have like, first shot would be at least to come back in for an interview. So with that being said, I would agree that we should go through the original vetted process of posting it internally, externally, newspaper, whatever we have to do.
Labor Council is aware that it's applications that are already on file. This is a very similar situation to what we faced in November of 2010, or just prior to that. We did receive a FOIA request from an attorney, from an individual who was not selected, who looked into our hiring practices and those recommendations from Labor Council. Not that we did anything wrong, but were based upon what we went through during that time. And that's why I think from Labor Council standpoint, it's always better to run everything through the personnel department. And it's not, again, not citing anything incorrect here, but that if we do it, we have a consistent policy. We advertise the position. We give everybody an opportunity to apply. We interview the best candidates, follow all the same regulations, and then make our decision. I don't know that it changes anything with the candidates who are here, but I am just going to, I felt it was my obligation to the board to remind them of where we were just 2 years ago in the similar situation. Anyone else?
I'd make a motion if that's what you're looking for, that we, I don't want to say backtrack, but follow the,
Direct it to the personnel director.
yeah.
I'll second that.
Typical procedure that we would for normal hiring.
Randy, are you okay with that?
Board's direction, yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions?
My question is the motion will be, is it to follow the typical direction of hiring practice in the township, basically?
Correct. And for this time, and I think moving forward for the fire department, I think it's really easy for us to do is to put the ad locally or post it locally, and applications come in. It expands your opportunity to interview more candidates, but certainly it doesn't preclude any of the applications that you've already accumulated from folks who just dropped them off. They don't have to reapply if you've already got applications for
Well,
it.
the real issue is we simply have to be able to demonstrate that there was equal opportunity.
For everybody, right?
That's all. And that's what the advertisement does, is it closes that door to somebody complaining that they've never had an opportunity. Public employment is supposed to be open employment for anybody. Differently than private sector. I mean, you can do what you want, basically.
Okay.
It's your money, it's not public money.
The motion is second to remand it back to clerk, Sherry.
So the motion, as I'm going to write it, is going to be follow the typical direction of hiring practice in the township with everything through the personnel director. Is that?
But that's what goes through, yeah.
Okay.
That's how
I'm
it's handled.
presuming that the individuals that are identified in the memo are not gonna have to apply again.
No,
They're
I would-
accepted as applicants.
I believe that they have been accepted and interviewed. And if there are any additional candidates and you hold additional interviews, I don't know if that changes your outcome. You still had a third position that still hadn't been filled yet anyway, so it may bring in additional candidates for you, Bob.
Randy, do we typically have a time frame, or maybe that's a Bob question, on how long we sit and wait for applications to come
Yes,
in? Do we give it a week
it'll
or
be-
2 weeks, or?
If we can put an ad,
17th.
I'll work with Bob on this, but if we can get an ad in the mining journal for, let me see, this is Tuesday, we should have it in the mining journal on Thursday, run it through Saturday, and put a Friday deadline on it, something like that, or even whatever, just a reasonable amount of time for people local. I mean, this isn't gonna be something somebody's gonna apply from out of the area for, it would be a local
Right.
candidate.
And it's going to give Bob the opportunity to interview other additional candidates if he so desires. We'll still be able to make the recommendation on the October 1st meeting date, which was my goal. I don't want to delay it any farther than 2 weeks. We have a motion and a second. There's no other discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Sorry for the delay, Bob. In my overabundance of caution, I just can't help myself. That's going to bring us up to agenda item number 10E. Consider the Marquette County support for tax tribunal challenge. I don't think I have to give you anybody here a background on the tax tribunal, you're well aware of where we're at with it. I think that Manager Gerard's transmittal dated 9/11/2013 provides a certain fact-based appeal that he would like to submit to the county for the tax tribunal challenges. And I would highlight that in his memo, he does talk about the Board of Commissioners previously allocated $1,000 each to at least 2 other local governments that had made requests for the individual tax tribunal challenge assistance. We're in a much different situation than they were. We collect and distribute a much larger share of the regional tax revenues, potentially $642,000 per year is at stake, including $109,522 annually directly to Marquette County's own operating and special programs revenues. Manager Gerard?
It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, we've expended a tremendous amount of money for a small return. The impact to this township is $74,000 a year. That's the maximum impact. This year for 2014 in the budget, about a $16,500 impact is the one that's been settled so far. And you'll see that in the revenue stream. But realistically, we've spent over $200,000 in legal fees fighting this battle, and we're the only one financially participating in this with the smallest at risk. So it makes no sense to me. We've met, Supervisor Lehman and I have met with the school district, we've met with the intermediate school district, we've met with the county, we've met with other entities that may be involved. We've talked with Michigan Association of Townships, Michigan Association of Counties, Michigan Municipal League, none of which have been forthcoming with any money. All of which will benefit from our case. If we're successful, which we believe we will be. So I think it's time for us to start hitting some of these folks and saying, look, here's the impact to you. And we're running this case forward. We need some financial assistance. Not $1,000, but we need some serious financial assistance. The county funds the Regional Economic Development Authority. They give them roughly $65,000, $68,000 a year for local economic development through the Lake Superior Community Partnership. We're trying to keep business that's here, and I would put our success rate easily next to the Lake Superior Community Partnerships any day of the week in terms of what we've brought into this region in terms of income and revenue. So I think it's time for us to start getting some assistance in this case. And that's what I'm proposing, is that we take this to the next county board. And I have notified the county administrator that I intend to do that.
That's the right thing to do.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't think you're going to find much argument from any of the board members here that we send that request to the county and ask for the substantial thing. And if you feel that it would be best to approach it in person at a county board meeting, then we should do so.
I think it's a televised meeting, and I think we should make our case on TV.
When's the meeting, next meeting?
Are you looking for all of us to be there, Randy?
No, I don't think so. I think,
Banners and signs?
Outside maybe, up and down the
There you go.
sidewalk. Myself, Supervisor Lehman, maybe Treasurer Johnson. It's
Okay.
financial.
It's that important, though.
See if we can get on their agenda, or we'll have to do it on
Next meeting
comment,
is,
but I'd love it if we could get on their agenda.
Their next meeting is next Tuesday.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to get on that quickly. They may,
That's
well,
when we're meeting.
Got a meeting.
we're
Yeah.
meeting on that day, so possibly their first
Wow.
meeting in October.
You're gonna have to be gone.
I think we have to do it ASAP.
I would think so too.
They meet like we do every other week.
What time do you know? They
They're a
meet,
7 o'clock meeting,
And they meet on Tuesdays.
yes.
so can we change Tuesday to 5 to 6?
They're at 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
So we're going from 6 to 7. If they put us on the agenda, it wouldn't be until after, it'd be 7:30 or something. We have plenty of time to get there. So that's fine. If we can get on that agenda, we can still make it.
Okay, so 24th?
Yeah, if we can get on it.
Okay.
If we can't, you get us on another one in 2 or a month later, and I will miss a portion of our meeting if I had to go up here there to make the appeal. Attorney?
I think we
We also need to go to school.
I do too.
When you look at how much they've already lost from Lowell,
on that. And if they don't want to contribute, this is what you're going to end up losing. continually, so you have to become partnership in
I
that.
can tell you right now, the schools,
They
the
make it
local
and
school
make up
district
on it.
believes that if it
Schools
gets
can
shorted
make up
here,
on
that
it.
the state will make it up. I don't think that they've thought it all the way through, that they'll make it up from where, because this isn't a Marquette Township issue, this is a state of Michigan issue. And as these things continue to dry up, it's gonna dry up funding for a lot of programs statewide. So thinking that Lansing's just gonna make it up somehow, when you're taking the commercial big box district and reducing their tax burden by 2/3, I don't know where they believe that money will be coming from. Ernie?
When you just look at Lowell's from what it was in the state education tax was 31,000. With what happened, it went down to 11,000. So you're talking $20,000 the state education tax lost right there. So when you start looking at where that money's coming from to make up what they're going to lose, there's not going to be there in that.
There's also some opposition to the bill that was introduced by Representative Keevil last year. I haven't heard about Tom Kasser's bill, which is supposed to be introduced this week. Representative Keevil introduced the one in the House, I believe, House Bill 4977.
Thursday.
Last Thursday, we look for Senator Kasperson's Senate version, almost identical bill, or virtually identical bill, to be supposedly introduced this week. It took a little bit of a delay because of opposition from a couple of groups who wanted to meet with them beforehand. First, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce Association, and the Retailers Association, Michigan Retailers Association. Michigan Retailers Association clearly is going to oppose the bill and work hard lobbying against it. I would expect nothing different from them. It's an opportunity to reduce your taxes by 2/3 or up to 2/3. Their lobbying group should probably be working against it. Is it right? It doesn't pass the smell test in my opinion. I clearly made my opinion well known on that. The chamber is a whole different animal. The chamber to me really surprises me, and I think that at the very least they should remain neutral on the subject, considering the fact that they're a chamber of commerce and municipalities, which are also members of chambers of commerce and supporters of chambers of commerce. I find it kind of ludicrous that the Michigan Chamber would be considering speaking out against the dark stores legislation and in support of cutting the revenue stream to local municipalities across the great state of Michigan. In fact, I'm quite disappointed in their inability to at least remain neutral and allow that to be worked out through the court system or through the legislature. I will be very disappointed and very vocal if I hear that the Michigan Chambers of Commerce have chosen to oppose our bill, lobby heavily against it. But I thought you guys may want to be aware. Randy, do you need a motion or board consensus good enough for?
Enough.
Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is to consider the resignation of our Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority Treasurer. In case you're wondering who I'm referring to,
Raise my hand.
it is Trustee Durant, and it is with regret that she had to turn it in, but she's also served very admirably as a representative down from Marquette Township on the Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority. But I know that the Iron Ore Heritage Rec Authority members would do anything to reverse her decision if they could. She's done a fantastic job for us, which means that we're looking from a Marquette Township board standpoint for somebody to fill some very big shoes. Lynn says that she's got most of the heavy work done now, and that the candidates who would be willing to step forward don't have anywhere near as heavy of a load to drag forward now that the Heritage Trail has had major sections of it completed. But there's certainly some work to do, and it's not done yet, let alone the ongoing maintenance of working forward. So this is an appeal. I have a couple of candidates in mind that I have spoken to briefly. I have one who is interested and has a banking background, which may come in handy for the Rec Authority just from to fill the treasurer's shoe standpoint. But I wanted to put this on the agenda so that it was known publicly Thank Lynn, of course, for her service, certainly to the Iron Ore Heritage Trail Rec Authority, and as a Marquette Township representative on that board. And Lynn, any words?
Thanks, Dennis. That's very nice of you. My family is going to be needing me with the new grandbaby coming, and that's really what precipitated this, especially with trying to run my own business. It makes it even more difficult because the baby's probably going to be right on my desk maybe at some point. But like you said, the hard work is done, the trail's down, and I figured it'd be the most opportune time for somebody to try to step in. And I did ask you for someone with some kind of financial background because the board of 8 to 11 is very diverse, and that would be one thing that was lacking. I'm not an accountant, I'm a certified bookkeeper, but they could use any financial help, and I think that would help for budgeting and besides whatever they bring to the table. And it is, depending on what happens with the proposed recreation authority that the city and Chocolate and Marquette Township are trying to work on, that could envelop the Heritage Trail. The Heritage Trail could envelop that. They could end up being separate. So there is some challenges going forward as to what that would look like. But for the time being, until the millage is up in 16, it's finishing up in Tilden Township, up toward Republic, working with grants, and any information or any knowledge that person would have would be a benefit, whether it's financial or even just a supporter of trails. It would make a big impact. So they have made their pleas and phone calls for me not to go. It will be on the Heritage Trails agenda. I just gave it to the exec board. We talked about it. So the board itself will learn that next week,
Okay.
right before the planning commission. So it's an appeal for anybody that wants to get involved. It's an excellent, excellent group to work with. They're just phenomenal people, and they're very dedicated and committed.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Anybody else, any comments? If you know anybody who may be interested or is a likely candidate, please have them step forward. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the manager's report.
It's fairly thin this time. There wasn't really a whole lot happening. We were tied up with the events here at the Township Hall. But there are two items I think that the board needed to get some report on. One is the work that's being done on County Road 492 west of Grove Street, the Grove Street intersection. That project with the Road Commission is winding up this week. They anticipate it being finished by Friday of this week. And that is basically simply a replacement of the road surface. They're not really doing any improvements to the road itself in terms of widening or changing the flow of it. They're simply replacing the road that was there. However, there will be some redirection of the drainage. So some of the ditch work is being removed, some of the culverts are being removed, and they're putting rolled curbing they're planning on putting on some of the segments of it. So that project should be finished. That will go from just at the Grove and 492 intersection to essentially Mason's Bluff, the old hairpin turn, the Dead Man's Curve, whatever you want to call it. That's the distance they're going this time. The next project that they'll be doing from the next building season will be from Grove Street coming back this way to the Heritage Trail. The other item is the last item on here on the legislative update with the discussions about revenue sharing. The subcommittee has been established to look at revenue sharing, which is now called the EBIT program. I guess they figure if they keep changing the name, they'll forget what it was supposed to be. But in any event, they're now looking to go outside to the Citizens Research Council to do some research and make recommendations to the subcommittee. That makes me a little bit nervous. MTA is supporting that concept. I guess anything easier than leaving it in the hands of the governor's office is acceptable to the MTA. But I'm a little bit concerned about going to organizations like the Citizens Research Council. They're a very conservative group and generally favor business. So I think that this is probably not going to be in our best interest.
Questions for Manager Gerard?
Statutory revenue sharing, we really don't get that anymore,
We
do
don't
we?
get the statutory, but it's going to expand to the constitutional as well.
But that takes a vote of the people to do that.
Well, So did several of the other bills that have
Yeah.
recently been passed into law that didn't have to go to the public.
Lynn?
Just to back up a little bit, did you have an amount that you had in mind, or maybe Supervisor Limita, to ask from the county for the tax tribunal?
I'd like to see some sizable participation from them. I'd like to get them possibly in the 50,000 range.
The number that I kicked around was in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. I think that, yes, that's a sizable commitment on their part, but we spent $208,000 defending it.
So far.
Yeah, so far. And, we certainly have skin in the game. They stand to lose much more than we do. And I think when you consider that, I don't think that $40,000 to $50,000 commitment on their part is out of the question from an ask standpoint. Although if you read the local media reports of the $1,000 contribution that they made, that was certainly controversial amongst the board members, so we have some selling to do before that ever gets. We gotta make sure that our two representatives on the county board at least have heard our pitch and our appeal before that board meeting.
We have talked with both of them in that regard, but it was a while ago.
So whether they would support that type of expenditure, I don't know. Pete?
On grocery, Randy, are they gonna, coming down the hill, are they gonna, did you say roll the shoulder a little bit? Coming down from 492 down Grove Street?
Not on Grove, no, they're not doing anything more to Grove Street. It's 492 only, it's 492 west of Grove Street, between Grove Street and Mason's Bluff.
Yeah, that's all I heard is a bunch of negatives about what they did to that road. Should have left it alone, that's what people are telling me, so.
I've heard similar.
Yeah, because they're not doing it. It's very well traveled as far as bikes,
There's a lot of erosion on the side.
and the whole sides are terrible, so they just made it worse, I think. That's what
Yeah,
they're
the
telling me.
potholes that are on the edges of the road is terrible, and the chip seal process that they did, from the neighbor standpoint, basically everyone feels like it highlights the bumps. I don't think that's any worse than it was before, but because they did something, it just seems like it.
Yeah.
The response from the road commission is that they're not gonna do anything further to improve Grove Street until we lift weight restrictions on that road.
Yeah, their actual position is that the funds that they have available are not usable on Grove Street because it's not an all-season, all-traffic road. So they've expended everything they can expend on Grove Street.
Now, this board could always make a motion to remove those weight restrictions in the hopes that one day the road commission would have some money and they would spend it on Grove Street.
It may be worth a discussion with them that if we do X, will you do Y?
Yeah, with timeframes tied to it in writing. Not that I'm skeptical, mind you.
Well, it'd be a contract proposal.
But it is, it's very, I mean, a lot of people are, talking, especially after the rain we had.
It's bad. There's a lot
Our
of big
shoulders are
washouts.
terrible, and no reason for that. I
If you
mean,
go to the intersection of Grove and Vandenboom and you turn right, be careful, because that's about 2 foot deep where people have gone off the pavement and right into the soft shoulder there. The hole right there is, and I'm not exaggerating, 2 foot deep. It will take your hubcap off in a hurry and bottom your car out. I know they need to get some maintenance done out there, and we keep hearing it all over that. I mean, some of the shoulders need work throughout the township. And like I said, I think it really highlights when they went out and did the chip seal, because it seemed to accentuate the fact that that road is in terrible shape.
And it was probably the equipment that they put on the road to put the chip seal down probably exacerbated the damage to the side of the road.
But we'd love to have you have a meeting with the road commission and explore that opportunity if we lift the weight restrictions.
you're not gonna hurt the road.
What would be the response from them?
I can't help it. It's just that lately, a request from Vanderbilt North, you talk about south there, Randy. I mean, Dennis, north, she called up and she told me about it, and I called Randy, and he was, thank God that Randy sent somebody over there. The driveway's being washed out, and the house next door, all the gravel is in his front yard, and there's big gaps on the side of the road. and you ride up and down, the other end is riding up and down in Trowbridge Park, and it's just terrible.
Right.
Yeah, winter's coming, what's gonna happen, it's gonna drop off, a car's gonna go on that side, gonna drop down when it melts, and it just,
I don't think it's likely anything will happen before winter, and it is. There are more and more bicyclists using Grove Street to get to the trail.
somebody's gonna get hurt. No, I know we have to wait till somebody gets killed or that, but, you know, jeez.
Any other questions for Manager Gerard in regards to manager's report? Seeing none, we will move on. The next item on our agenda is number 11, public comment. Any members of the public wishing to address this board? Seeing none, we do not have a second forum discussion either. We do have additional comments from board members before we have the closed session. Dan?
I had someone ask me to ask this, but is it possible for them to use debit cards for payments?
Not currently.
We're not set up for it.
Treasurer Johnson, you want to?
I would say Ernie can answer that question.
Is this something we're going to?
Not at this point in time. We are in the process of moving in that direction. It'll probably be November or December.
But I don't think it'd be debit cards, I think it'd be credit cards.
Credit cards, there's no debit cards at this point in time. So, and it'll be credit cards only in that, so.
Because they were concerned about debit cards, so.
No, that'll be coming to the board here probably at the next meeting, because it's at the attorney right now, he could see no problem with the contract. So once we get the official word back from him, it'll probably be on our next agenda. But we're looking at November, October may be too soon, probably be November before we'll get to that point in that, so.
And that's for paying taxes, right, Dan, not just on water bills or anything, right?
That's for everything,
For everything.
yeah.
Okay. Clerk Petari.
Just a reminder of the board, I've received one evaluation for the manager that needs to be done by the end of the month. So make sure you get that to me, either an email or just leave it in my box.
Ernie? Just a comment?
The one comment I have, in place of Lynn, she was unable to attend the last library board meeting, so I did, and I found it to be a very interesting meeting in that. I have not seen one like that in all the years I've attended meetings in that.
You thought I was lying, eh?
When I get a packet of information, I take it upon myself to read it. I don't expect to go to the meeting and have every single piece of document reread and rediscussed, item by item by item. And that started at 5 o'clock, and by 10 after 6 they got through with that, and they were ready to leave. And to me, it's an advisory committee. And to me, the advisory committee is looking at providing direction or to the library or as a library itself or as a library board and that from us and that. They were not too receptive to some of the comments I made as to the direction, I think, and some of the financial information that I gave, that we need to look at different ways to fund it, because we were paying a disproportionate portion of the amount from the townships and that, and they did not appreciate it too well. And be very honest with you, I've attended a lot of meetings in the last 50 plus years, and I usually say it either from 1 to 10, 10 being a good meeting, 1 being a 1 meeting, 1 being on the other end, and I have to say 1 would be giving it a very good rating at this point in time. I just don't think they understand what an advisory committee is all about. So I would suggest that we put it on the agenda, either next meeting or the following meeting, as the direction we want to go with our 2 members on the advisory committee. Either meet with them and provide direction to them as to what they need to bring to that meeting, because otherwise they're just sitting there saying nothing in that. And I put it very honestly that I don't think I would fill in for Lynn again. I think I have a lot more better things to do than to sit there for an hour and a half and just listen to what's going on. It's just, I don't know the original background on the advisory committee as to when it originally started or that, but if this is what's been going on for all those years, it's been a complete, from my perspective, a waste of people's times in that. There's just no reason to sit there for an hour and a half and go through a packet that you've already got in your hands and that, and nothing else comes up in that, not unless you bring it up. Because no one else brought up anything. I was the only one that spoke at the end. And then they spoke after I did. But other than that, they were just ready to close down the meeting. So that's my perception.
Dennis, do I assume that that it had no comment on what Lynn proposed before?
No,
comment, no nothing?
actually, I did forward you, just when we got here at 7, I sent to your email transmittal that I received today. And there are a couple errors in their minutes, because in the last minutes, the statement was made that I said that the library, that I said that the library should look at a different method of funding, and I did not. I said that this committee, meaning the advisory board that I was sitting at, and there are comments in here almost to the same effect about what Treasurer Johnson said, which has nothing to do with the board. My comments were directed, I said this committee. And they also said, and I'd like to challenge your mind, and maybe it's even in our minutes, that they didn't believe that I had direction from this board to say the things I said. So read that transmittal, and if I said something wrong, I will definitely apologize, but I believe I had the direction correct when I went to that meeting as to how we wanted to handle it. And I brought my comments back to you, and I believe the consensus was that was okay. We were going to wait until this meeting in September to see what their response was going to be to my comments. So,
That's what I was sort of referring to when I asked it.
yeah, you'll have to read them and see. I sent it
Okay.
to your charter or your township email address.
So, I think it brings up some very interesting points. And if you'll recall that our previous TAC representative, Mr. Marks, came back who said it was frustrating because the meetings didn't actually take any advice from the council members. They were there, it was read to them, and that was the end of it. We had heard that really it was just, perhaps it was just Mr. Marks who had a difficult time with the director and with other TAC members. I think that it's become very clear from Lynn's attendance and Ernie's attendance that we want to be an active part of Peter White Public Library. We're very interested in maintaining our relationship. But I guess maybe we're more activists than other townships, but when we are on an advisory council, we tend to hope that they listen to our advice at some point. And at least, we're not saying it has to go our way, but there should at least be conversation regarding some of the advice that we present. And I'm a little bit disheartened to hear the comments from both trustees in regards, trustees Durant and Treasurer Johnson, in regards to their reception at the meeting. I do have it written down to put it on the next agenda. I think we need to have a conversation as a board about the Township Advisory Council. I think it would be fair to invite Director Christensen to attend and join us in the conversation to find out how she feels. But if we don't have a voice, I'm not sure why we're participating. I'm not sure what that council's doing for us, and I think we need to explore that and see if we can make some changes. And I would think that the Peter White Public Library Board of Directors would welcome the opportunity to hear what the township community has to say, especially in light of the fact when you look at the amount, the dollar amount that Marquette Township contributes to operations of Peter White Public Library. We're huge supporters. Our residents are huge supporters, as we've shown in the past. But if you're gonna have an advisory council, we believe that you should at least entertain the advice when it's offered. So it will be on the next agenda. Director Christensen will have an invite to join in our conversation. Any other board member comment this evening? Seeing none, thank you. That'll bring up the next item on our agenda, which is the closed session. Clerk Rattari?
I move we go into closed session with MCL 15.268, subsection C, for strategy negotiation sessions connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement if either negotiating party requests a closed hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk Rattari?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Trustee Durant?
Yes.
Trustee Truscott?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
We're in closed session at 9:09 PM.
Thank you.